Is this thing on or how's it going? Well, hello and how's it going? Well, how's it going?
Hello, and how's it going? Hello, how's it going?
Well, how's it going? Well, how's it going?
Well, no, sorry. Well, how's it going?
Well, how's it going? I'm here with you. I looked at you and I started
I was
laughing.
going to say good.
Well, how's it going? I'm here with Kristian and Madison, and we're back.
We are back.
The back, baby. My phone vibrated.
Try not to laugh.
Well, how's it going? My name's Ben Spateri, and I am here with Kristian Karamanich,
That's me.
and we are still hungover.
Yeah. In continuation from last episode, because we're recording on the same night back to back. And I think the discussion we had right before, in between episodes, was what kind of greasy feed we're going to get after we finish here. It's not good all around.
All over.
And then Dom's over there going, "I've got pasta at home. Sorry that your wife cooks for you, Dom."
I think we maybe need to make a decision and not record on Sundays.
Yeah. Well, or we could just have self-control when we go out.
Very true.
I don't know which is more likely
realistic.
to happen, but yeah. Nah, we'll be okay. We're good.
Yeah, we are. We're smart.
We soldier on. That's one of our biggest strengths, me and Ben.
100%.
Well,
Getting onto the business at hand.
yeah. Would you like to tell the lovely listeners what we're going to be talking about on this episode?
Yeah, we decided to go with rent vesting. Something that's probably a bit
vesting.
more common these days. So I think it's definitely become a bit more of a trend in the last 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of people hear and talk about, but not a lot of people actually understand the inner mechanisms of how it works and how it can ultimately benefit you.
Yep.
Which I think is
100%.
really important to talk about. Before we delve in, obviously, if anybody asks if you know a good heart surgeon, you tell them, no, I don't. But there is a great podcast about property that you can listen to. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and hopefully once after we record this, YouTube.
We need
How's
to get a
it
cut
going?
of like the 10 episodes of you saying that differently every time. I think that'd be a good little mashup.
Yeah, I know. I think it'd be pretty good. We'll get there.
We
I only
will.
started doing it last few episodes, so we don't have enough yet.
That's all right. We'll build up.
if we
a bit
last
of a
that long.
bang. It's very true at this rate.
All right. So, Benny, rent vesting.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to take the lead on this episode because you've been prepping all week for your fight, but you got my notes there. Would you like to tell the people what rent vesting actually is?
What is rent vesting? Well, without even looking at your notes, rent vesting to me is living where you want and buying where it's going to be
Where you can afford, effectively.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. So the idea is for a lot of young people, home ownership in the area they want to live is just not achievable anymore. And rent vesting basically bridged the gap. So I'm going to be looking down at my notes on camera. Sorry, guys. Basically, home buyers will continue to rent in an area they want to live, which they've otherwise been priced out of. And the idea is you then buy in another area somewhere, which doesn't matter where because you're never going to live there, where you can A, afford, and B, it's going to give you a strong capital growth. So with rent vesting, the important thing, the name of the game is capital growth rather than rental yield is always good. If you can get both, great. But the most important thing is capital growth. Because the idea is that while you're paying rent to live where you want to live, your property is hopefully going up in value at a rate that exceeds the extra outlay you're paying for renting.
Yep.
In terms of who actually does it, who it's sort of targeted towards that whole idea, it's generally young people and first home buyers more so. Because a lot of those people, obviously, it's basically just anyone who has been priced out of the housing market in the area that they want to live.
Which commonly these days is more and more of us. And like you said, young people, first home buyers, it's not really generally affecting on buyers, but.
Correct. Because look, for a lot of obviously that older generation, our parents and our grandparents, they bought when the market was a lot more affordable.
This old chestnut. I paid $5 for my first house.
I paid $37 in a box of beer for a house in the inner west. We're not salty. Shut up. No, and look, that's not a jab at those people.
No.
They played the hand they were dealt, and obviously we've been dealt a different hand.
They worked hard to get their properties.
Exactly.
It is what it is. It's just,
And
we can't poke fun at it.
Yeah, correct.
What can we do?
What the fuck's the point? No, and this is exactly why rent vesting has become a thing. And it's a very popular strategy amongst a lot of young people. And the area that obviously is most prominent, the rent vesting capital of the world, is Sydney.
Yep.
Not just Sydney. It's obviously, you can do it in places like Wollongong too.
Yeah.
All the other, it's usually capital cities. That's where obviously people are priced out. Regional, you don't obviously really have that as an issue as much.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's basically gives people a way to get a foot in the door. So I've got notes here. There was research conducted by the Westpac Banking Group, and they found that across the nation, 54% of first home buyers were actively, seriously considering rent vesting as their main strategy. And in New South Wales, it was 61%. And that was for Q3 2025. So up to March.
I think a lot of people attest renting when they could buy is a negative thing because you're obviously paying for someone's mortgage. But when you're putting it in perspective of you're really playing on capital growth of the other property, you still have a foot in the market. You're not out of the market.
Correct. Because I think I've said on the podcast previously, one of the biggest trade-offs you have when you're buying property is units versus houses.
Yep.
It's effectively a battle of rental yield versus capital growth.
Yep.
I'll give you guys some context. I'll give you a personal adage because I'm an open book. I've got a couple of agents.
He's very open.
I've got a couple of agents trying to sell my unit currently.
Yep.
We had the first open house yesterday.
We did.
One party through.
We did, but it was raining.
The weather was cooked.
Did not do us any
The weather was about as cooked as me and Ben right now. But yeah, I bought my unit, which is in North Wollongong on Burke Street. Yep. Lovely location, lovely 80 square meter internal size unit.
He's writing the ad.
I am. I do it all myself. Off market. Private sale. What was it? Yellow bricks? Yeah. Maddie's going to hate us for bringing that up again. No, Ben's doing a good job. I'm joking. And Maddie was doing a good job and then she left on Friday. So Ben's taken over.
Taking the reins.
I bought 3.5 years ago for $760. I'm now hoping, fingers crossed, to be able to get about $800 for my unit. Probably shouldn't give that away to potential buyers if they're listening to the podcast. But ultimately, that's what I'm looking at, which that's basically going to recuperate my costs of my initial purchase and selling costs, which I never bought it with the intention of capital growth and making money. It was a lifestyle purchase for me. So I don't regret that decision, but it just goes to show if I had have bought with that money, if I had have decided to either stay home or even rent somewhere and buy a house in a high growth suburb in the south part of Wollongong, I could have made a lot more over that time period. Yeah. But like I said, it was a lifestyle thing for me and I was young and wanted to have my little flash unit on the beach, What can I say?
A little bachelor pad.
Something like that. With my dom.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that as well. Like you said, it was a lifestyle decision.
As long as you're conscious of it, that's what I always say.
Exactly right. You can't then sit back and go, oh, I've done the wrong thing, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. You need to sit down and make an assessment at the start.
Absolutely. And look, if I chose to keep my unit and put it up for rent, I get a very strong rent to yield, but I've decided I don't want to do that. I'd rather just move on and see if I can invest my money elsewhere. And, I'm at that point now, I've got to make some of those decisions. So, but again, it's that whole, not dilemma, but that debate of rental yield that you get from buying a unit versus capital growth that you get from buying a house. And that's obviously where investing kicks in. So what the benefits are, you basically get to live where you want while still building wealth through property, which is a big thing.
Yep.
You also get massive tax benefits because obviously
100%.
You're paying rent, but you've got a mortgage on an investment property. So you get massive negative gearing benefits. So if you're in a position where you're in a semi-high tax bracket, the tax breaks that you get from negative gearing are pretty massive. The other key benefit you get from rent investing is flexibility.
Yep.
So you can basically live where you want. So because you're renting, you can move around as much as you want, especially some people who, for example, like if you have more of a nomadic career where, you work in a job that's constantly sending you to various different locations. If you're renting, that works for you because you have that flexibility. You're not kind of buying something and then locked into it. Or even just lifestyle. Some people like to move around regularly. Some people like to change the scenery. I don't know.
Moving is never really a fun job, but some people like to do it and good on them. It's
change the scenery here and there.
It can always change things up, which is always a positive too.
Correct. So those are the main benefits of it. Obviously, there are downsides though.
Yep.
One of the biggest downsides is if you're a first home buyer, you will miss out on your first home buyer benefits because you're buying as an investment. Unfortunately, when you buy as an investment, if you want to claim your stamp duty waiver, you have to live in the property now for 12 months, which means you miss out on 12 months worth of rent. And I've done that math before. Majority of the time, the amount you lose in rental income is more than what you save on stamp duty. So it's not worth it. The other issue you've got is schemes like the government guarantee scheme. They only apply to owner-occupier properties. And there's no time frame on that. It has to be owner-occupied the entire time the government is guarantor on your loan. So you can't go live in it for 6 months and then rent it out. So ultimately, part of that obviously also means you need a higher deposit in theory, unless you get a bit of help, family guarantee or whatever you do. But ultimately, no first home buy help.
Yep.
Another downside is you have lack of stability. We put flexibility in there as a pro. To some people, it's not a pro. Some people, it's a con. Some people want to have that stability of residence, especially. And it might sound a bit, maybe not silly, but some people might not think it's as important, but emotional connection, right? For a lot of people, the place you live brings a certain emotional attachment as well. And I'd say, you don't have that when you're renting. If you're moving around every 12 months, you don't have that.
Completely agree. There's definitely a reason that some people stay in their homes for the entirety of their lives.
Correct.
In some spaces as well.
Absolutely. You also obviously have double the property costs. So you're paying a mortgage and you're paying rent.
Yep.
And capital gains tax. So if you do eventually liquidate the property, you're liable for capital gains tax, which I don't know. I've got that on there as a downside, but the reality is it's, if you want to build wealth through property, you're going to have to suck up some tax. It is what it is. It's not an issue that's unique just to rent vesting.
Unfortunately, there's no way to escape that in Australia.
No. The ATO's got to stick their hand in that cookie jar wherever they can. So the idea, to sum up everything, it's basically you rent where you want to live. And the best example, so what I went through, Ben was laughing at me with how detailed I went into this, but I've done a full hypothetical scenario with full numbers to kind of back up what I'm saying, just because I want people to understand how this actually looks in reality, not just, in theory. So what I've got, the example I used was Sydney, because it is the best example to use. I used the example of, let's say you're born and raised and living in the inner west in Sydney. To nail it down even further so it's more consistent in my example, I used Marrickville as a suburb.
Yep.
So the issue you've got with Marrickville, based on data from realestate.com, which is current as of July 2025, and it goes the way they do their data, they do price movements and median prices over the last 12 months. So the median price in Marrickville for the financial year up to June 2025, median house price was $2.125 million in Marrickville.
Not bad to be a homeowner in Marrickville.
If you bought 30 years ago. To buy a home at that price, assuming you're able to come up with the 20% deposit plus stamp duty, it basically is, which the 20% is $425,000 and $100,000 for stamp duty. So you have to come up with $525,000, which is pretty absurd.
Chump change.
Yeah, it's nothing for Ben. You then also have, so your mortgage would then be $1.7 million, 80%.
Yep.
Assuming an interest rate of 5.7, which is probably the pretty standard average rate, probably get less, but just for simplicity's sake, 30-year mortgage at that interest rate on 1.7 mil, your payments are $2,275 per week. Chump change, right?
Yeah, no, that's definitely affordable for the average. What is it? What average wage in Australia hovers around the 80,000 mark?
I think for millennials, I think the median income is now $100,000 a year.
Okay, so even on a dual income of a couple of 200,000 a year, I don't think you're clearing a week much more than that.
We can probably tell you. Yeah, we'll pull up a calculator and keep talking while I do this.
I'll talk. No, that's just making an assumption. While Kristian works it out, most couples these days, if they're clearing $2,000-$3,000 a week.
Yeah. So here we go.
If your mortgage is 80%.
If you are on, what's this weekly? If you're on an annual salary of $100,000 a year, and let's say you don't have any HECS debt, but you probably do if you're on that kind of money in your 20s, your weekly net is just under $1,500.
Wow. So
even if you got a couple who are both on the median $100,000 a year, I don't know if it is $100,000. I remember reading something, it was around about that point.
Yep.
But again, I don't know, ever since I was a kid and a teenager, I always thought, six figures was
100%. Now it's like you need that just to live.
Yeah. So if you've got a couple who are both on $1,500 net a week, they've got $3,000. So if you could somehow swing a bank loan as an occupier with that, you've got $700 a week to live off, which is current cost of living price is not great.
No. No going out.
Well, to give you context, in that same suburb in Marrickville, the median rental cost, again, this is all the same data source, all realestate.com. The median rental cost for a 2-bedroom apartment is $670 per week.
Yep.
A lot more affordable than $2,275 a week.
110%.
So let's say you bought a house then in the southwest of Sydney, right? This is obviously the way that rent vesting would work. So let's say you wanted to keep living in Marrickville. So you suck it up and you pay $670 a week.
Yep.
And again, that's the median for a 2-bedder. If you were on your own, you could downsize that into a 1-bedder and pay even less if you wanted to. But for argument's sake, I did a bit of digging in terms of over the last 12 months based on the realestate.com data, what suburbs had strong growth. One of the stronger ones was South Penrith.
Okay.
Which obviously, if you're born and raised in Marrickville, all of your family and friends and your entire social network is in Marrickville, the last thing you'd want to do is move out to South Penrith. I get it. You're basically isolating yourself from your support structures and everything like that. But obviously, and this is obviously where rent investing kicks in. So in the median house price there, again, same time period before, up to the financial year up to June 2025, median house price there was $1,005,000. Again, let's assume you had enough to come up with a 20% deposit plus stamp duty, which is about 240 grand altogether. Your repayments, assuming the same assumptions above, so 5.7% 30-year loan, your repayments would be about $1,076 per week.
Massive drop.
Massive.
More than half.
Yeah. And then obviously you factor in if you're rent investing, you will also be receiving some rental income too, which offsets the cost. Again, in South, and this is again, like I said to you, that dilemma of a unit versus a house. The rental yield on a house is not as strong. So in South Penrith, the median rental price for houses is about $600 per week. So if you're assuming you're buying for median price and receiving median rents, I also factored in ongoing costs of about $100 a week. Might be more, could be less. It really depends.
It's pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Leaves you with a net of about $500 a week. So you clear $500 a week from the rental you receive.
Yep.
So basically, your out-of-pocket costs are $576 per week on the mortgage, and a further $670 per week that you're paying for your rent in Marrickville where you're living. That gives you a total of $1,246 per week. Even though that is a lot, it's almost half what you would be paying if you just outright bought a house in Marrickville.
$1,000 more in your pocket for potentially other investments, for
Correct.
living, for anything.
And bear in mind, this is me doing numbers just purely on cash flow basis. You also get massive negative gearing benefits out of that. On a mortgage like that with the interest payments, everything, you get a massive negative gearing benefit, which I didn't break down in my numbers because that is so situational based on how much income you make, what other tax breaks you might have, what if you're getting government benefits too, if you're a couple. Like there's a range of factors that impact that.
Yep.
So what I then did with that, I looked at obviously over the last 12 months in South Penrith, the median house prices grew by 11.7% according to realestate.com. I don't know how accurate their data is.
I think they're generally pretty good. Realestate.com have definitely picked up their game in the last year or so.
Yeah. Well, their data, I think that's just raw data. So they don't filter out random supply shocks or demand shocks. If you look at something like CoreLogic and I think they're Catalan,
they're a bit more,
they tend to, I think they adjust for a lot of those shocks and things like that. But for the sake of this example, I think it's better to use just straight up raw data.
Yep.
So 11.7%. So assuming that same trend continued over the next 2 years, might not. I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. In 2 years' time, your house in South Penrith would theoretically be worth $1.253 million. So you're obviously, like I said, you get a massive windfall at tax time with the negative gearing. So this is now the way my numbers are is without even taking that into account. That in itself would probably net you a lot more. But for simplicity's sake, when you look at a breakdown, over that, let's say again, 2 year time horizon, the rent you pay to live in Marrickville over that time is just under 70 grand.
Yep.
The interest that you pay, assuming you did bare minimum repayments, which if you had extra money, you dump it in offset, you might pay less, but bare minimum, about 90 grand in interest costs. Your initial stamp duty outlay is 40 grand. The net rent that you receive is about 52,000. Your net position, if you take into account all those costs, you're basically down about 148 grand. The thing is, though, you've also then received capital growth of 248,000. So in theory, you're in the clear 100 grand.
Yep.
And then obviously you pay capital gains on it too. But
you're also getting tax benefits along the way. And I think in that example, especially, the good definitely outweighs the bad.
Yeah, like I said, so you're effectively up 100 grand plus whatever tax benefits you get from having the investment property. And that's if you choose to liquidate and sell at the point. You could keep doing that for a while. So it just shows even over a shorter time period of only 2 years, you're effectively 100 grand better off in that scenario.
Yep.
Because you're riding that capital. And that's, again, who knows what the market's going to do. The growth might be more, it might be less. You don't know. It's obviously a bit of a gamble, but everything is these days.
Completely right. And just basing on that example, it's you're paying, half?
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that now.
Well, your cash flow is, which we're still nasty.
No.
I know what you're trying to say. I'll finish your sentence. That's how well me and Ben know each other. Your cash outlay is effectively $1,000 a week less than if you just went and bought a house in Marrickville.
Yep. And for the example that we're using, if we were going off just base income of 100K, you wouldn't get finance for that.
You can't. It's not possible.
So it's not even an option of, we have the decision. We'll try and make it work for $700 a week.
You can't.
You couldn't.
Correct.
And really, you shouldn't put yourself in that position.
No. Your options basically are either you look at something like rent investing, or if you want to live where you want to live, you buy a unit in Marrickville.
Yeah.
problem, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said to you, I did it. I bought for lifestyle, not for the purpose of capital growth or rental yield. And if you would rather just have your own space and pay off your own mortgage at your own pace and know that you're comfortable, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you make an informed decision. That's what I always tell people. The decision has to be informed. Sorry, I'm just getting my timer back out. I'm not trying to look at
No,
as long as you are making an informed decision, that is all that matters. So with rent vesting, even in this that's a very, very hypothetical example. Like it's obviously there's so many assumptions that I've
no, but I think the stats all back it up.
Just to give you a raw indication of how powerful that can be from a point of view of building your own wealth, but also not having to sacrifice the lifestyle you want to live. That to me is the most important part of this. I think
that's what people our age are doing so much more these days. It's not, we're going to wait to save a deposit. They desperately want to get in the market. And let's be honest, I think our age group, we want something, we want it now and we want it where we want it.
Correct.
We're very picky like that. So a lot of people in our age bracket are buying to an extent that they probably can't afford.
Correct.
And stretching themselves to points that aren't enjoyable and you're not living. And
that's the other big thing I always say, Benny, is I'm all for being smart with your money. And at the end of the day, I don't think you should ever just try and look, each to their own at the end of the day, but I couldn't just do day to day. I need to have a plan in place. I need to know that I'm progressing and I want to set myself up for my later years. But at the same token, I don't want to forego my 20s. These are supposed to be the best years of my life. So to me, it's about balance. And I think that's where this strategy is so successful because 100%. It gives you that balance. You're not sacrificing the best years of your life. You still get to live where you want to live and have the lifestyle that you want to have with the people around you that you want to have around you. You don't have to move out west somewhere and isolate yourself and commute 2 hours a day to get to work.
Definitely.
So you still have that lifestyle, that convenience with your job, with your career, with everything, but you're doing it in a way that you're also making sure you're building a bit of equity and a bit of wealth in the process. Because if you hold that property in South Penrith for a few years and it goes up in value, you've then built up equity. And what you can either liquidate that and then you have a much larger deposit to go towards maybe your possible house in Marrickville, or you keep it, use the equity, you go again, you buy another one, you do the same thing. And then you've got double rental streams, double tax benefits, double capital growth, while you're still paying the same rent to live in Marrickville.
And that's really what I think broadly looking on, a lot of people are big on Instagram these days and showing people how they've done certain things like that. That's what these people are doing.
Correct.
They're not buying their own or occupier home and mortgaging themselves up to 80 or 90%.
Mm-hmm.
It's an investment and then they're rolling that into the next one progressively and so on.
And the best part about it is you're not locked into anything. It's what people seem to forget. There is nothing wrong with buying this thing, holding it for 2 years and then offloading it, cashing your money and run, and then buy something else. Then maybe
use that
buy
money for your family home.
100%. There's nothing, you don't have to buy this and hold on to it. You're not locked into anything, right? Even if you buy it and in a year's time, you just think, fuck it, it's too hard, it's not working for me. Even if you sell it at maybe a slight loss, not a big deal.
No.
If you want to be free of it and just move on and do something else, you can. You're not stuck.
Yeah.
Which to me is also really important. So it's a combination of being smart with your money, but still having that. I'm such a big believer in balance and having that. You still want to have a life and have a lifestyle. You don't want to just live and breathe your mortgage and your debt.
Definitely.
Is this the most optimal strategy from a financial point of view? No. The most optimal strategy is stay at home with mum and dad, buy something and put it on rent and do it that way.
That's a pretty common strategy these days as well.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Or the other optimal strategy too, it's there's lots of other ways you can tackle it, but this is the one.
Because you're still getting your washing done for you as well. and meals on the table.
Ironing, the work.
Oh, take me back.
It's a nice life. But you know what? Even on that, some people don't have that option.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're lucky that we always did. I still do. I can go move back into my dad's place tomorrow. He's always said I'm welcome. And, not everybody has that. Yeah. We're very lucky to have that benefit. Please don't misunderstand me. I know not everybody does. So if you don't have that benefit, then
maybe this is your optimal
strategy, right?
Yeah. And I think even bringing it back to a Wollongong level, funnily enough, as we were talking about that, I sometimes just keeping an eye on realestate.com, you see these properties that sell from maybe around the high ones, the $2 million mark, and then they're on the rental market straight away for around $1,000 or $1,100 a week. And it's like, well, that's a perfect example for someone that maybe couldn't afford that type of property, but they want to live in that type of home. Like, for example, myself, at this stage, I probably can't afford a 5-bedroom home with a pool and stuff like that, but maybe can afford to rent it and keep my current property as well.
Correct. Exactly. And there's lots of options. I've been looking at myself now, given I'm selling my place. I've been contemplating the idea too, mainly because Wollongong is, I view Wollongong as basically Sydney, but on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
In the sense of you've got units in Wollongong in the centre of town. You can buy them reasonably priced compared to Sydney. You can put them on rent and get a decent rental return, but they're not going to go up in value as drastically as, for example, we've spoken about it before, some of those really, the suburbs we expect to be high growth.
Well, you were
the next couple of
saying it was
years.
Lake Heights, wasn't it?
I did a bit of digging. Again, just looking at the raw data from realestate.com, and one of the highest growth suburbs in Wollongong in the last 12 months was Lake Heights.
Yeah.
And they had growth of like 10.7%.
Which is huge.
Even suburbs like Dapto, Unanderra, Berkeley, they're all around the 6.5%, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think you're going to get the same returns as you would in Sydney because it's Sydney. It's just a different
It's a whole
beast.
other beast, yeah.
But again, if the rental that you're paying is also scaled down in Wollongong too.
Exactly right.
You can get a 1 or 2. You can get a 2-bedroom unit for rent in Wollongong somewhere, sometimes for like 500, 550 a week.
Yep.
And if you can buy a house in Berkeley for 800 grand, that's going to go up in value, 15% over the next 2 years. Why not?
100%. Stay in Wollongong, or even renting a house in Wollongong. If you want to stay in Wollongong, you can still pay $800 a week maybe and buy that $800,000 house and some, cover the costs in between. Yes, it's probably not going to be as profitable as this situation that we went through, but it's the lifestyle thing. You're living in town and you're still getting capital growth on that property.
Exactly. And it bubbles down to living where you want to live
100%.
whilst making sure you still set yourself up financially. And that to me is the key driver of this strategy. And I think it's a really good strategy for people. I think if you're in a position where you don't have that luxury of being able to stay at home with your parents, like what we maybe do, and you have to, for example, some people we get it all the time in Wollongong. I remember through uni, the amount of people I met at uni who had moved to Wollongong from rural areas, they don't have that family support network here because their family are not from here, and they're on their own. And in that situation, you can't just say, go home and live with mummy and daddy. They don't have that option. So therefore, a strategy like this would be really, really helpful. Yep. Especially in the context of Wollongong too. You live in town, you pay $550, $600 a week for a nice little 2-bedroom unit somewhere. And then you buy that house in Berkeley, Dapto, Horsley, wherever you want to buy, and you get that capital growth and you sit on it for a few years. Still get to enjoy that lifestyle, but you're still making sure you're setting yourself up in the best way possible. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much else to add on that. I think it's a pretty straightforward thing in theory. Putting it into practice is harder.
Yeah, I think it's also, and probably very broadly speaking, everyone's situation is different. I think doing something is better than doing nothing at the same time as well. And if this was an easier step for people and it gives you a lot more freedom and stuff like that, then hey, jump on it.
Correct.
But like you said,
it doesn't apply to everybody, right?
Exactly right. Everyone's situation's different.
For example, with some first home buyers, let's say you've got a young couple who recently married and they're looking at wanting to start a family.
Yep.
In that situation, I would argue the stability is a lot more important than.
Exactly right. And that's the thing with a rental property. Yes, you could be in there for 12 months and then the owner's situation can change and they have to sell it, or they may want to put up the rent.
They can give you a 90-day notice after 3 months. You don't know.
Exactly right. So, yeah, that stability part, completely understand that.
And you know what? I'm a firm believer in it's better to be in market with something than to be out of the market overall. So even if you can't afford to do this and all you can afford is to buy a unit somewhere in town in Wollongong, do it.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's better than doing
nothing.
It's situational. And it's
so please don't take it the wrong way. We're not saying this is the optimal. It's better to do something than nothing. And you know what? Not everybody has the luxury of the options like this. Sometimes you need to just knuckle down and do what you can. And it's still going to help you in the long run. And it doesn't matter. Whatever you choose to do. Because when I say units don't go up in value as much as houses, it doesn't mean they don't go up at all. No. They do. And obviously, you're still paying the loan down. So you are still building equity. Just obviously
the more you spend, the more capital growth you're going to get generally. But yeah, units, statistically, we're not coming up with something new there. All you have to do is Google that.
Correct.
It's nearly double in some areas.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to note for everybody, not everybody is in a position where they can do this kind of thing. And that's okay if you're not. There's nothing wrong 100%. With, or even if your personal circumstances are different. Like I said, if you are more concerned with that stability and you'd rather just buy your own unit, pay it off, sit on it slowly. If you're going to be down an income stream because you're going to have a kid or something, do it. Give yourself that stability and worry about the rest later.
Exactly right.
You always got to put your own needs ahead of, the financial side of it. Obviously, both are important, but ultimately, no point setting yourself up financially if you're also going to be miserable in the process.
Exactly right.
Balance.
I remember having that conversation with you.
Yeah.
That's a very realistic thing.
Might have been my dad. It's easy to get us mixed up, clearly. No,
both good looking.
Well, depends who you ask.
I'm really on with compliments.
Really? I know. I don't know how I feel about it. It kind of throws me.
I'm just glowing you up.
Yeah, I know.
I think we're going to have a special episode coming up of Broker Wants a Wife, so I'm just trying to
He's buttering me up. He wants me on board. But yeah, no, I did have that conversation with you in Tegan, though. And it was again, it was one of those ones of just making sure whatever you guys do, if you have options, great. But ultimately, it's irrelevant if you're going to make yourself miserable in the process.
110%.
This stuff is all really important and we want to help people with it. Give us a call. We want to help you do this and achieve this. But I will always say to you, first and foremost, make sure that you're comfortable where you are and that you're at least semi-happy.
Exactly
minimum,
right.
you know, like you're at the very least complacent.
There's no point in mortgaging yourself up and you've got $50 a week to spend and you just sit at home in tears.
Correct.
Yes, all right, you may be making good money in 10, 15 years with capital growth and so on, but what's the point?
Correct. I think the adage my dad always uses is no point buying something for the sake of buying something, then you get home every day and walk up the driveway and think, fuck, I hate this place.
Yeah, and that's so real.
Yeah.
It's so real.
It is. Alrighty. I think we're going to wrap that up there. Last episode was a bit longer, so we'll keep this one down to a reasonable time, I think, by comparison. Thank you for listening. We appreciate all the support. I think we did put up a bit of an appreciation post this week too, because we've hit 10 episodes. This is episode 12, I think.
We're still in the early stages, but yeah, we 100% appreciate all the support, all the likes, all the
we've had a
responses on our stories. Like we love the feedback. So.
Yeah, we've had a lot of support. We get a lot of really positive feedback from a lot of people. So thank you all very much. If it's not too much trouble, recommend us to a friend.
Yeah.
Get somebody onto it.
100%.
And if they're thinking, if you or your friend or your family member or your dog or your cousin or your cousin's fish, if they're thinking of rent vesting, get them to get in touch with us.
I thought you were going to make a podcast joke then. Sorry, that's why I was laughing. Yeah.
Didn't I do it at the start?
Yes. No, I thought you might do it again.
Double down. It's too much. Yeah. I was going to say, give me a call. I'll hook you up with the mortgage. Give Ben a call. We might have some good listings going for you.
100%.
Or both, rental-wise and
yeah, exactly right.
To buy.
Buzz.
Yeah.
And Madison when she gets back from Europe.
Yeah, eventually if she ever comes back. Cool. Wrap us up, Eddie.
With that, ciao.
Ciao.
Everything presented in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only, and all advice is to be considered general in nature. It does not take into account your personal circumstances and financial objectives. Please consider if this advice is right for you and look to consult a financial professional.